This is Heavenscape, Year 1, the Strathmore Chronicles, brought to you by Saturday Night Gaming. The Strathmore Chronicles, written by Tony and Jessica Stevens, narrated by Tony Stevens and Jessica Stevens. Gloom, Episode 2, The Unlikely Alliance. Arthur Strathmore's mind was full of voices. They echoed, as if they were being projected out from the black guards. They seemed to be directed at the elderly man sprawled on the cobblestones. The only sounds were the shuffled footsteps of the crowd around them. The eerie voices echoed, only in his mind.
It is time. You have been chosen.
The voices were growing louder. His head was aching, making it difficult to think clearly.
It is time. You have been chosen.
To do what?
Strathmore yelled, joining the stranger's side, directly in front of the old man.
Chosen to do what?
Move aside, citizen. This does not concern you.
What exactly am I the citizen of? The wet man shouted, showing backbone that even Strathmore approved of. What city is this?
You are a citizen of Sheol.
The voices replied. Where exactly is Sheol? The man fired back. The black guards turned their heads slowly, as if to look at each other and then back at the mismatched group of rebels. The voices were deafening.
Everywhere.
Look, I could care less what you do to me. The man glared at the guards. I don't really have much to live for, honestly. But this guy, he pointed to the old man, sobbing on the ground, seems like he wants to keep his life. So, back off. The voices stopped for a moment, and Strathmore's booming laughter broke the silence. He clapped the moist man on the back.
Well said, boy. I'm Arthur Strathmore.
He extended his hand. You can call me Mud, for all I care, the man said, shaking his hand. Just as Arthur was about to ask what kind of a name Mud was, one of the guardsmen moved towards the old man, still cowering on the ground. To Arthur's surprise and admiration, the small man balled up his fist, rushed at the guard, and slammed his fist into the side of the guard's helmet. The knight stumbled back, his posture broken, a large dent in the side of his helmet. Mud looked down at his hand in shock. Inspired by Mud's heroics, the slender redhead ran past Arthur, leapt into the air, and drew her rapier. With finesse and force, she drove the blade down into the guard's neck. The dark armor collapsed, unmoving on the ground. The remaining dark knight took a step toward Arthur. The old warrior drew his massive sword. The bandage on his right arm began to smoke and burn away, and a brand in the shape of a bird began to glow a bright red on his forearm. He threw back his head and unleashed a primal roar as a raging fire engulfed his fists. It began to dance its way up the ebony blade, as if it were alive. Arthur had no idea what was happening to him, but it felt right. He was angry, full of rage and fury, and it felt good.
Taste the power of my Iratus Blade,
Arthur yelled as the flaming sword blazed through the air to meet his opponent's weapon. When the two blades met, the air crackled and shimmered with heat. The Dark Knight unleashed a flurry of blows, and Arthur fell back a step. His parry came a second too late, and he felt the guard's sword bite into his side. The old warrior roared in pain. As if the Iratus Blade felt his pain, its flames raged into a blue inferno. And when Arthur drove the claymore into his enemy, the sword seemed to help him. With inhuman strength, Strathmore lifted the impaled guard into the air and twisted, throwing him from the burning blade. The armored guard tumbled on the ground, stopping just in front of the tall, dark, cloaked man. He looked down at his enemy, the wide brim of his black hat hiding his face. The man flexed his hands, and they seemed to grow larger as long, wicked claws ripped through his gloves. As his hands changed, so did his posture. He seemed almost a beast, as he snarled and thrashed at the guard with amazing speed. His long claws shredded the thick plate armor like butter. The bodies of the fallen guardsmen suddenly began to seize, faster and faster until the armor was vibrating. The black metal slowly dissolved and rose into the air like smoke. All that remained of their vicious foes were the weak, brittle forms of humans. The body of the guard lying before Mud was just an old man. His skull was crushed in on one side, and his head had been nearly severed by the red-haired woman's sword. Strathmore looked down to see a woman where his enemy once was. The smoldering wound in her gut was still smoking, and her chest was a bloody mess from the dark man's claws.
A lady?
Arthur took a step backward.
I didn't mean to hurt no lady.
Arthur grumbled.
But she wasn't acting like a lady, okay?
Vel and the woman with the wolf approached the carnage. She was stunningly beautiful with long platinum hair and delicately pointed ears. Her massive wolf snarled and raised his hackles as they drew closer.
Watch it, pup. Don't make me pet you with my bad hand.
Strathmore held out his hand in front of him for the creature to smell. The wolf began to pace in front of the woman, growling louder and raising his tail high. Arthur cleared his throat.
Well, hello there, Wolf Mama. I'm Arthur Strathmore.
My name is Emery. This is Tilk.
The elven woman rested her hand upon the wolf's head.
And that's Rin.
The redhead nodded solemnly and continued to clean her rapier.
Nice to meet you. Now, this is my good buddy Vel.
Arthur exclaimed, patting Vel on the shoulder.
Watch out, though. He has pointy ears, and sometimes his eyes glow a funny color.
Arthur narrowed his eyes.
Hey, you got pointy ears, too. So, does that mean you two are, like, really good at hearing stuff?
It means I'm an elf.
Ah.
Strathmore nodded his head, pretending to understand.
Hey, you're pretty good with that sword, Rin. I could show you some more moves sometime.
He grinned at the gorgeous redhead. Mud narrowed his eyes at Arthur and stepped closer to Rin, possessively. Strathmore wiggled his eyebrows at the man and chuckled. Mud scowled back.
Tilk, you keep an eye on him.
Emery knelt beside the wolf.
Both.
Arthur winked down at her.
You're going to want to keep both eyes on me.
He looked around, subtly remembering the dark man in the cloak.
I thought there was, someone else with you. A strange man in a black hat. You know, with, those really big hands.
The dark man was gone. Then 2 trails of blood and gore stained the dirt where their enemies had fallen.
Yeah, he disappears sometimes.
Emery's reply was drowned by a deafening horn. They covered their ears, but the sound was in their heads, shaking them to their bones. Tilk began to howl. The horn was relentless, vibrating the very air around them. The fog around them dissolved slowly, as if being blown away by the horrible sound. The horn continued to bellow, resonate, and grow. The ground under their feet began to shake as if it, too, was filled with terror. Strathmore could see his surroundings clearly for the first time. The mindless, shuffling crowd was massive, smothering them on all sides. At the edge of town, an enormous wrought iron gate enclosed the city. The gate was guarded by a tremendous black knight. Horns adorned the sides of his helmet, and spikes grew forth from his arms. Massive gauntlets rested casually on the hilt of a huge double-edged greatsword, the point of which was anchored into the ground in front of him. Even across this great distance, Strathmore could feel the piercing gaze.